Hey everyone, my name is Katie Robertson. I'm the founder and director for the Anchor Gathering, and this is the Anchor Moment, and I want to tell you a little bit about what that is. It's a time we get to hear from a guest a little bit about their life, their faith journey, and an anchor moment. And that is a time that someone has had their faith grounded and they've seen Jesus for real in their life. So we are so excited at this time you get to hear firsthand a personal story from one of our guests, and we hope that you'll be encouraged.
Hi, my name is Claudia Longo. I'm 23 and I recently graduated from the University of Washington. I grew up around here. My family's from Issaquah. I have 3 siblings, all of whom are extremely active, so I grew up in a very active, sporty family. My siblings played all different sports, but I always gravitated towards soccer. My passion was always on the field, playing the sport I love. We also grew up Catholic, so went to Catholic church. I was baptized when I was, a year old. But we only went to church when none of our games were at that time or we weren't busy playing sports. So definitely wasn't a priority growing up. As the years got going, I fell more in love with soccer and it became my outlet. We had some pretty crazy family things happen. When my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer, I took a bag of 10 balls and I went to the field and I shot free kicks for her, letting my anger out at the world with those free kicks. Later on, when my parents got divorced, the first place I went was the soccer field. And of course, as I got injuries just in the natural course of the game, my first question was always, okay, but when can I get back to the soccer field? Years later, all of this hard work and dedication on the field paid off. By my freshman year of high school, I was getting offers to play collegiate soccer. By my sophomore year in high school, I had won a state championship with my high school team, and I finally had committed to play soccer at the University of Washington. And those following years in high school, I was training all the time, practically overtraining, and by my senior year, we had won our second state championship with Issaquah, and in that same week, I also played in the All-American game and had my sights set on obviously playing for UW several months later. As time went on, I started experiencing some pretty weird neurological symptoms. I had numbness and tingling, I was throwing up after my games, I had migraines, all of which we had no idea where it was coming from, but eventually I did go to a doctor and I received a diagnosis. I have multiple sclerosis. This obviously was a big blow at the time. I mean, what 18-year-old gets diagnosed with MS, especially just 2 months before starting my next chapter with the University of Washington? Despite that, I did everything in my power to continue playing because it was what I loved and what I knew I wanted to do. Fast forward probably 6 months, I got back on the field. At this point in my life, I had started going to church, thankfully, before my diagnosis. My sister had actually introduced me to a new Christian church. So about a year before I was diagnosed, I had started going, started praying and worshiping, and I just knew this was a relationship with Christ that I wanted in my life. Well, it turned out to be a relationship I knew I needed in my life. When I was diagnosed, I just remember the first couple times going to church after, and all I could do was put my hands in the air and worship and pray and know that God was going to get me through. So when I came back to the field and came back to the sport and even got back to the classroom at UW, I knew it was because of my faith and walking with Jesus as he got me through that tough time. This is probably the moment where I started lowering my anchor, and I can't say I fully felt that anchor until about several years later. I got a pretty major concussion and that prompted a flare-up. This was my junior year of college. Everything was starting to finally go right. I was playing, I was super excited, but I had to take, once again, a step back from soccer and a step back from school. At a point where this could have been a low, I was leaning on Jesus more than ever before. And my anchor moment was actually, I had just done a 3-day high-dose steroid treatment, which for those who don't know, it gets you. It's a lot of medication in your body for just 3 days at a time. I was sitting on the couch, in my living room, and my roommates decided to turn on a sermon. It was titled, "It's Just a Season." From that night on, I wrote "It's Just a Season" practically everywhere I went. It was in my car, it was on my mirror, it was on my desktop, it was everywhere. And it served as a reminder that this truly was just a season and God was still with me and God was still gonna get me through. Funny enough, it's just a season. Well, I got back to my next season with the University of Washington soccer team, and realized that it speaks to something so far greater. Yes, it was just a season where I was struggling and going through it, but my soccer career was also just a season, and my purpose was far greater than what I was doing on the field. That season, I had a young gal from Idaho drive over to watch me play. She had been diagnosed with MS just a couple months before. She was also a soccer player, but never even imagined that playing soccer was going to be an option again. That day I had a good game, I had played a little bit, I was a little bit frustrated with how I played, but at the end of the game, she came up to me and she said, "This was everything I needed to know that my journey is possible too." Had my anchor been in my sport and in my performance like it had for so many years, I think I would have missed this incredible opportunity right in front of my eyes. But with my anchor in Jesus, I realized that I was making an impact off the field that I truly didn't even see coming. I played a few more seasons for the Huskies, and about 6 months ago, I launched my own nonprofit called MS I'm Possible, and this works to support young adults living with MS financially and through community support and through resources when they're newly diagnosed. All of this started with that little idea from, this one girl coming to my game, and I've been able to grow such a network of so many other young adults kind of needing this community support and financial aid that wasn't offered to them before. And again, though it was just a season, as I was battling and as I was struggling, it's turned into so much more, and it's because Jesus is my anchor.